Okay, we got the high sign, so we'll call our meeting to order tonight. Are there any additions or deletions to the agenda? We do have one addition, I believe, that was distributed earlier. Everybody should have a copy of it or have seen it at least. Anything else to add? Hearing none, we'll entertain a motion to accept the agenda as amended.
So moved.
Support.
Motion support, last chance for comments or questions. All those in favor say yes.
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 Any opposed say no. Motion is carried, we have an agenda. Roll has been taken, including our new arrival. Welcome, Roxanne.
Thanks.
Sorry to start without you.
Okay.
So, roll is taken, next up is Pledge of Allegiance. If everyone would please rise and join us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, oops, thank you. Excuse me, sorry. I guess I'll make the change. Okay, next thing, we're going to look at approval of the minutes of the July 11, 2023 regular meeting. Your pleasure.
So moved.
Support.
Have a motion for approval. Any comments or questions, corrections, additions, deletions? Hearing none, all those in favor say yes.
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 Any opposed, no. Motion is carried. Moving all the way down to E, we have a request for purchase. We are to consider a resolution to approve the request for a purchase to Todd Wenzel Chevrolet for the purchase of a 2023 four-wheel drive Chevrolet Tahoe in the amount of $42,802.81, which is replacing a current patrol vehicle as soon as the upfit of the is complete, which I assume is all the lights and bells and whistles that the police department needs. And this, I believe, is part of a statewide purchasing program, so we're getting a great deal.
Yep, my deal, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, you would not be able to find a Tahoe image for that price. No, you would not.
So your pleasure on the purchase of this vehicle.
Move approval.
Support.
Okay, we have motion support. Any comments or questions?
Just like you mentioned, this is a budgeted item. We have two patrol vehicles that will be replaced this year after not replaced for the last 3 years. We're hoping the next one can be a Ford Explorer, but, and that's just because hopefully we can reuse some of the equipment into the new vehicle. But we've been running into, if it changes vehicle style, then it makes some of that equipment.
The gear doesn't fit.
Doesn't fit.
Yeah.
So we'll see how that progresses, but they're way back on orders for Explorers because they use them pretty much everywhere. But we were able to secure this Tahoe. So.
Okay. Anybody have any questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Any opposed, no. The motion is carried. Moving to resolutions. First up, we are to consider a resolution to approve Alma Transit's Title VI plan as presented and to authorize Transit Director Bubelitz to provide signatures as necessary for that. Your pleasure.
Move approval.
Support.
Have motion support. Background?
Yep, this is something that is part of MDOT's requirements, and we just had our audit and went with flying colors. They just said we had this policy on file, and they said, well, it'd be better if you had it approved by your governing board, so that is why it's in front of you today.
Fair enough. Anybody else have any comments or questions? Anything you want to add, Brett?
Eric said it all. That's
Complete, very good.
Done.
All right, so with that, all those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Any opposed, no. Motion is carried. Next, you are to consider a resolution to designate the following financial institutions as additional approved depositories for City of Alma funds. And we have listed before us Michigan One Credit Union, Independent Bank, Fifth Third Bank / Fifth Third Securities, Gratiot Community Credit Union, and Graco Federal Credit Union. Your pleasure.
Move to approve.
Support.
Motion and support. Any background?
Sure. Yep. As we discussed about diversification of some our city funds, it was also discussed to add some additional financial institutions that we could get some bids from. So all 5 of these institutions have gone through our process to verify that they do meet our requirements and policy. And with your approval, these would be added to our list, and request for for CDs and cedars, those sorts of things, so.
Okay. Any comments or questions? Just comment, I've seen some of the bid process that Curtis and his team are using, and I think it's very well designed and they're doing a good job, so thank you. With that, all those in favor say yes.
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 Opposed, no. The motion is carried. Thank you. Agreements. First up is consider a resolution to approve change order number 2 to the contract with McGurk Sand and Gravel Incorporated for the downtown parking lots improvement project in the amount of $152,205.30. This will cover additional costs for installation of an overflow drain to facilitate drainage in parking lots 4 and 8 behind the Opera House building. Your pleasure.
Move approval.
Support.
Motion support. Background?
Yes, back in 2019, I believe, this, Alma College secured some funding through the MEDC as part of the overall Opera Block project to do the parking lot. As part of that project, we upgraded piping and other items in the alley to move that water from that area out to Downey Street. Well, that gets all complete, but we're having backups. We really can't point to it. The engineers that have looked at it said it shouldn't back up the way it's backing up. So that being the case, we worked with another engineer to draw up some designs to help alleviate that. And what they came up with is basically we remove what's back there, build it bigger, and to move that to water both ways, moving it to the west to go up to the alley and then up to Downey Street, and to move it, part of it, to the east, because currently this will go across Woodworth Avenue. There is no catch basin or storm drain on Woodworth. All the storm drain is along Superior Street there. That would connect into the work that we're doing right now in that alley back behind the Pizza One and the Strand and Art Center. This would be funded and covered by our ARPA dollars that we received. But I know it's a big number, but we do need to invest in this to protect those buildings back there from the water that does accumulate when we get these heavy rain events. There seems to be more of them lately as the climate does change. And just if we look at storm drains, typically something like this would last, close to 100 years. They'll be in the ground. So, investing for a 100-year project is well worth it, and to protect those buildings. Those buildings have been there for almost 100 years themselves, so generating revenue for the community. So this is the time to do it.
Okay, what's the first question?
I have a couple. I think initially I had some concerns about change orders. I knew there was going to be a change order and we anticipate change order. The big thing that I was looking for is integrity within the scope of the work that was initially put forth versus the scope of work that was done. And I'm seeing a lot of discrepancies in terms of their excavation per cubic yard. I would think that initially their bid would honor that initial cubic yard price, and they've increased that up to $5 a cubic yard. And I think this is some of the concerns as I talk with Dave and I talk with really other people that are kind of in this realm about what this project costs and what I think it should cost. I think there's an opportunity for someone to take advantage of the situation, because they understand that if we were to do this at a later date, it would be near probably $300,000 to $350,000. And so we are saving a bunch of money by doing it now. But I think, in my opinion, I think the bid's about $45,000 more than what it should be. I know you've had conversations with Dave. Did Dave have an idea of where he thought this was going to fall?
Generally, he feels it's a little bit higher than what he'd like to see it, but this is where we're at with the projects being open, the streets being open. If you didn't do it now, everything would be put back together and then we'd be ripping out.
Because I did notice there's temporary traffic devices that they charged on both. There's a mobilization charge on both. And again, I don't expect them to do work for free. I would just like some integrity from one bid to the next. Again, when the price of moving dirt, I don't think has went up in the last 7 days. when the initial bid that they sent out versus the initial bid, versus this bid here, it's a different price. It's not the same. And so I would like to see them in the future, or if they don't, maybe we take note of it, because if they're the low bid by a few $1,000s and we know that there's change orders coming, I mean, there's an opportunity to say, okay, well, in the past, our bids were, in this case, 30% higher than where we expected them to fall. And again, this is a concern that I had initially. I think they do great work. I think I mean, again, it could just be maybe being hypersensitive to some of these charges, but they don't seem to add up. There seems to be duplicate charges. There seems to be charges that, for the scope of work that's being done as a change order versus the scope of initial work, the numbers are too close when, again, the secondary portion of work, you know, based on the bid itself, should be roughly one maybe eighth of what it is. And again, I expected this number, and I think David kind of expected this number to be around the $100,000 to $110,000 range. So I believe it's $40,000 more than what it should be. And again, I just hope that we're at least, I know David is keeping track of this in the future.
Anybody else? Anything to add?
Nope.
I guess, from my perspective, Danny, I don't disagree with what you're saying. In this case, I think, you know, while some of the fault may be with the contractors in the way, not just this particular contractor, but with the opportunity that all contractors maybe take, and they get additional for change orders and whatnot, you know, there are reasons from the contractor's point of view that, you know, throwing monkey wrenches in the last minute, changing things, does increase their cost in different ways that we may not understand, because I'm not a contractor. But in this particular case, this was a project that was done, in my mind, incorrectly 4 years ago. We probably, if we were going this direction, we probably should have known that and done that, included this work in the initial bid, rather than letting it lie as a change order later. I mean, it's just, I think there's as much internal fault as there is to point to the contractor, quite honestly. That's kind of my assessment of what's taking place here. You know, maybe but I agree, if you let this project, the alley project that we're connecting to, get completed, and then we come back next year or
Yeah,
sometime later and dig it up, it's going to be twice this amount.
So that
maybe
kind of
more.
puts us in.
Yeah, we're between.
You basically have to say yes.
Right, we don't have a choice, right? I mean, once we've accepted a bid, and this is the job, in order to complete it, we've got to pay what they say.
Which is exactly what we talked about, and Danny brought up when, and it's true of every contract you left, that's just the way these things work, unfortunately. But I think there's as much,
At the end of the day,
it's our fault internally as with the contractors or the contracting process.
At the end of the day, it's not like we're spending $40,000 to $50,000 more. We're just not saving that money, because this would have cost up to $300,000. And so, yes, we do save some money, but I mean, pinching pennies, I think it could have been.
Well,
with some maybe some better foresight, maybe some better planning. But at the same time, I want it to be like, hey, we need to and maybe it's in the initial contract that, hey, if there's change orders to be done and there's a similar scope of work and done, you need to honor that initial price. Again, if you have to bring out new equipment to do certain types of things, I understand a mobilization charge. If you have to bring out a different type of truck, I understand a fuel charge. But if it costs $30 for a cubic yard for the dirt in the alley, I don't understand the difference. Why is it 35 now? And that doesn't make sense to me. And it seems like if maybe in our initial contract, we could write it up, hey, if change orders are to happen and the scope of work is the same, we would like you to honor that initial price. Now, if it's a different type of work, maybe there's a different road base there, maybe there's a different type of substrate that they need to remove that takes more work, then sure. But I think that definitely probably should be noted, especially if they're going to make a change like that, so.
And I'll go one step further. Not only should we have included this, if we were going to go this direction, it should have been part of the original bid. We should have done something at the time this was initially done, and the problem first arose with the contractor and the engineering firm that originally engineered the project, that was done incorrectly, it's caused this, I mean, we shouldn't have to do this at all. We spent, what was it, $400,000 on that parking lot, and now we got
Close to with the drainage.
$150,000 to drain away, put drainage away, and because the problem got worse after we put a new parking lot in. You know, the problem goes back 4 years, so this isn't new. So,
it's-
like we said, we're between a rock and a hard place.
It's got to be fixed, and it's, well, trying to get the engineering around for this piece of it was not easy to get done with. We're still coming out of, we're coming out of COVID. There's a lot of timing issues. It's frustrating, but at this point, that's the best option we have to fix the problem that's there, because if we don't, we're gonna, like I said, those buildings are not gonna be in better shape because the water's there, that's for sure, so. And those rain events that we're getting they're crazy, they're, 10, 15-minute rain events where you get 3-4 inches in 10 minutes, 20 minutes. The video I took the 2 times and sent it over to the engineer to take a look at, it's amazing how much water.
And you mentioned the fact that there's currently no catch basins, there's no drainage on Woodworth right now. Is this project, as it crosses Woodworth, are we planning on adding a drain catch basin, or what you call it, someplace to catch the water there, a drain in the street, on either side of that street, as it's crossing from one alley to the other? Is there going to be a
There is one.
Although the engineering, I mean, it's probably at a high point, I was suspecting the middle of the block there, but I don't know that either.
Top of my head, Greg, I believe there's one graded manhole cover there that will allow water to come into that structure, but I don't know off the top of my head.
Okay. Just curious if we've taken that into consideration. We're adding more water at that point. Is that going to cause an additional problem?
Well, the water that we're taking from that alley goes underground. It goes into the...
Right, but if we add another catch basin in the street, as we're crossing that street, if we, it's going to pull it, some water is going to drop into that hole and add to that pipe. Is that being accounted for? I guess that's all I want to make sure of.
Yeah, well,
if we've added more water someplace else, are we accounting for that volume?
Like I said, when you and I talked about this,
And I hadn't thought about this until just now when you mentioned that.
Dave, when I asked Dave, I go, it's $152,000, is there something we can do differently that would not cost as much? He goes, yeah, we don't need to do everything possibly, but, like we talked about, if we don't build it exactly the way the engineers designed it, then I take the burden off of that engineer for what they designed to make it work. So that's all I can speak to, because I'm not an engineer.
Well,
I'm counting on them because we spent money to have them redraw this particular issue, and then we're spending specific money to deal with this specific issue.
And from my understanding, Greg, it is a step design to where it's only going to kick in if that main drain gets overwhelmed. Yes. So assuming that doesn't get overwhelmed, if it doesn't get overwhelmed, then it really would be no difference to that side of the street. It's only when there's really an overflow.
Right, my concern is that because it's going that direction, if you add another catch basin in between there, is it going to be already full by the time this one gets there?
Oh, my concern too.
Yeah.
If you've already filled it up from someplace else, then it's not going to do any good to what we're adding to it. So I just don't want that to happen. And
Well,
hopefully you've addressed it, or make sure Dave addresses it with the engineers, that their calculations are there for that.
like I said, this thing
If that's what they're doing, I don't
it's
know.
pretty over, when you look at it, you're like going, gosh, because when you and I talked, we're like, okay, we're just going to add an extra 8-inch pipe coming off that back catch structure to take it to the east to connect into the new stuff we're doing as we head back behind that alley. But they're saying, no, what we see there, and basically we're building a whole brand new system back there that's much larger than what was there, currently, which was what was there before we did the parking lot. So I'm sure, going to trust in that extra work that they're proposing is.
But because they're proposing rebuilding stuff that we just built 4 years ago, it tells me that they don't believe it was engineered properly 4 years ago. That's what that says to me. I'm not an engineer, I don't know these things. But
All I know is everything was upsized.
Yeah.
We found 2 obstructions as you went up the alley heading toward Downey Street. Those were removed because it's new piping. And we had issues back there. So I don't know.
The laws of drainage didn't change.
No, that's what I'm saying, but you know, the rain events we are getting are more
much
severe.
heavier, much
They're much more severe.
Yeah.
But that's gotta fix it. So that's where I'm at right now, so.
More comments or questions from anyone? Don't want to have a conversation here. Okay, well, with that, all those in favor say yes.
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 Any opposed, no. Motion is carried. Good luck.
No, well,
Let's hope this does fix it once and for all.
it should.
Okay, number 2, consideration of a resolution to approve the airport lease and asset transfer agreement. Also authorize the mayor to execute the agreement on behalf of the city of Alma. Your pleasure.
Move approval.
Support.
Okay, motion support, background, we've covered this.
Yep, a few times. The county commission approved this agreement at their last meeting last Tuesday, so it is ready for our signature. Everything is there, no property changes hands, it's just a lease to the new airport authority for use for airport operations. Obviously, the Gratiot County, City of Alma, and then the county and the city as the airport commission are providing the land to the airport authority for use of the airport. And then, of course, the assets that are there, they're obviously all built for airport purposes, and those assets will be used by the new authority to operate the airport.
Questions? I don't hear any, so it was just that easy. It could have been that easy or start, couldn't it?
That's right.
All those in favor, say yes.
We're there.
Yes.
Any opposed, no. Next, we'll consider a resolution to approve the intergovernmental agreement for the supply of municipal services by the city of Alma to the Gratiot Community Airport Authority, and also to authorize the mayor to execute this agreement on behalf of the city of Alma. Your pleasure.
Move approval.
Support.
Motion and support.
Yep, this is part of the transitional period. Gratiot County will use our finance department, PW, and some of my help to make the transition over the next 3 to 6 months. And it's fluid enough that if they're up and running with everything they need, we can come back to both boards and say, hey, we don't need through the end of the year, which is December 31st, is what's on the agreement. But this just to make sure we're all covered and that the city gets compensated for what they're doing, and as part of this as the transition happens.
Okay. Questions? Okay. And I saw in there, I think, it accounts for the total cost of whatever services you're putting forward. You know, kind of calculation of overhead and all that, so I'm comfortable with that. So, that being said, all those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Any opposed, no. Motion is carried. Thank you. Moving right along, reports of officers, boards, and committees. Commissioners may receive the following reports by one resolution, or any commissioner may remove any item within this section for individual discussion and vote. Tonight, we have a Board of Review July 18, 2023 meeting minutes, the Finance 2023 report, year-to-date, I presume. I forget the dates on it, but City Manager's newsletter. So those are the three before us. Your pleasure.
Move to receive the Board of Review and Finance reports.
Support. Oh, I did, didn't I? I'm sorry. I missed item G that we amended our agenda for, so. We have a motion on the table. Why don't we go ahead and take care of this one? We'll come back to that if that's okay with you.
I didn't hear support. Thank you so much.
Okay. We good with that? Just so we keep rolling. So any comments or questions on those two? Hearing none, all those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Any opposed say no. Okay, motion is carried. Let's quickly jump back to item G, which is resolutions, and this would be number 3. We have before us a resolution of an amendment to Resolution 2023-0068, the MDOT Annual Performance Resolution amending the 2023 banners and street closures table to include a closure on August 24, 2023 for the old US 27 motor tour stop in Elma. And your pleasure.
Move to adopt.
Support.
Motion support. Any comments or questions?
No, that's, the year before, we didn't have the motor tour stop in, so I missed that. I apologize, and we want to make sure that we have everything to MDOT that they need to have the road closed for the visit.
Okay. Last chance for questions. All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Any opposed, no. Motion's carried. Thank you, and my apologies for missing that amended resolution. Next, we'll move back to our reports of office reports and committees. We have item number 3, our pleasure to receive the city manager's newsletter.
Move to receive.
Support.
We have motion support. Eric,
Yes,
take it away.
yep, the Iowa Street project and the Harvard Street projects are moving along very nicely. Got a couple photos in there for you. We were hoping to have asphalt on Iowa this week. We'll see how that goes. With weather getting warm as it is, it's supposed to be, they're concerned on if they'll be able to lay asphalt or not. So just to keep that in mind. And then Harvard, they are doing concrete work right now, concrete curb and approaches. So
We're pretty well completed. I'm happy to add.
Good. You can see it every night. We could be talking about the parking lots. The Integrated Health Network Transportation Agreement. This is something that we sign each year. In the past, it's been a flat fee of $100,000 for the services to GIN for transportation services. We had discussed a little bit when we talked about this last time of costs and how much were we receiving what we need to receive, and were we maybe overcharging possibly what GIN needed. Well, with no prompting from us, they reached out to our department and said, hey, we need to look at how we're doing our budgeting because maybe we are spending too much on transportation. So in your packet, just as the draft, and if everyone's comfortable, we'll bring it on back at the next meeting. The GIN will be charged what we charge for normal services for those rides within our service area between Allen, St. Louis, Ithaca, and Pine River Township. And then outside of that, those other fees will be attached for that. To cover the extra accounting that will be needed for just keeping track of all that, there is a 10.5% administrative fee that will be added to each quarterly bill. So if we do go forward with this contract, we'll probably have a pretty good idea, at least within the first year, of how close we were to that $100,000 flat fee that has been paid in the past there. So is there any thoughts or concerns or comments on that?
Questions? I guess one thing comes to mind. I would fully expect that this would be substantially less than $100,000, but because the number of people that are now covered by the actual district, probably we've been transporting them at a higher cost because, and I don't know the proportion of where they're coming from, but I guess I'd be surprised if it approached 100,000 anymore. I would think a lot of the people that they were servicing at the higher rates are now within the district of is it a $2 ride?
Yeah, $2 ride, yeah,
so.
yeah.
Would you like me to speak on that?
I don't know if you've got numbers yet. I think to me, it's kind of, you give wait a year and see, look at the results and see what, but if you got something to share, please do.
Sure.
Go ahead.
I think I can just, excuse me, shine a little bit of light on it. Because the way that the numbers were trending for the GIN contract, we actually got a hold of them February-ish because their numbers were vastly inflated. And so they were looking at an even larger contract, and for them to be able to manage that bill, they needed to see where they could actually cut or remove some services. So this contract will do that because, one, in this contract, they're going to be able to share with us who their current customers are. Because originally, they could go in January and say, okay, I'm a GIN customer, and I get my bus pass, and then never show back up, and they can ride for a year, and GIN's going to foot that bill. Now we'll receive monthly updates so that those folks will not get a free ride all year long. So this will be good for us because, well, a free ride from GIN all year long. I guess that's, right. Yeah, so. I mean, those people are still going to ride with us. They're just going to pay us $50 instead of GIN.
I guess I don't know if I want to get into the logistics of how you're running this, but it sounds confusing as all get up to me.
It's thank goodness for computerized software because that makes it
So you've got a card reader or something on the bus that says this customer's card is no longer going to be covered by,
We can update that in our system, yes.
again, I don't want to cover logistics here, that's way too much detail for us here, but,
I'm hoping that it's a win-win for both ends.
well, it should be.
And we just wanted to bring that up
Looking for it.
because
Thank you.
we've discussed this in the past and just want to make sure that everyone's on board with that before we make it. This is definitely a change, what we've done, so. Also, again, we want to provide the annual actuarial report from MERS on the city's overall pension program. We are funded at 76%, 75%, which is down 2 or 3% from last year, and that has to do with the market changes there. You remember when Marnie was here to discuss some MERS options. As she mentioned there to you that over the next 14 to 16 years, as we pay on our pension and past liabilities, because that is the bills that we're getting now, we can't push off future liabilities anymore. We have 14 to 16 years, as she mentioned, that we would be 100% funded. They did provide in the report on page 11 there to kind of give us a snapshot if the markets change, because typically you're looking at a market at, return of 7%, but they did give us some ideas of what happens, what it looks like at 6 and 5%. So obviously keep an eye on those. And as she mentioned when she was here, that if, in the report that mentions it also, that if adding extra dollars per year, that gives us a dollar amount that within 10 years we could get it fully funded as opposed to the 14 or 16. So lots of good information in there. Related topic, about a little less than a year ago we were talking about how to help the pension program, but also at transportation, we have a fund balance there, and how could we use some of that fund balance to the benefit of the citizens of the city of Alma, because it's been a transit agency in Alma since the early 1970s, and through that time period that the department has been able to build up this fund balance. Well, one thing that we talked about doing to help the citizens and help our pension liability is that we would basically carve out this division from the general employee division, and it would be a standalone position. If you went through the actuarial report, you have housing commission in there, so that's a good example of what one pulled out. Why we would do this and what's helpful with that is once we pull out those 8, 9 full-time folks in our pension program there, we would be able to use our fund balance to 100% fund those liabilities on those employees, which would in turn help our overall percentage of our funded liabilities. This is also being discussed right now at the Housing Commission level. They have some fund balance there too. They're fully funded really by the federal government. And some discussion they're having there is, we probably need to we're caught up on our capital projects, so we have a few of them, but they're already funded. Should we use some of our fund balance to get us up to 100%? As you looked in there, I believe they were at 71, 72% of their carved out division. So if they were able to fully fund theirs for the time period, that would help our overall pension as well. But that's what they're talking about doing here with some of their fund balance. If that's something that the commission was still interested in doing, we just need to bring back some paperwork and a resolution to this board to approve carving out the transportation division from the general employee division, creating its own standalone, and then we would work with MERS to move extra funds into that to fully fund that particular division. So.
Makes a ton of sense to me. Anybody else have comments or questions? I'd be in favor of going forward with that.
Okay, all right. We'll have that ready.
Any other comments or questions about that topic?
We talked about it. So.
Okay.
Nope, I just wanted to bring you up to
I'm just
speed on that, and we just got all this information, so.
Right, it's good information.
Yeah, as I was going through your reports, or the MERS reports, I remember thinking back a number of years ago, I don't forget what year it was, but when we were talking to MERS, the representative, and I don't know if it was the same one or not, she was here, they had identified a number of things that we were out of sync with our peers as far as allowing, and one thing that sticks in my mind at that time that was identified was, as far as the calculation of benefits, we allowed I think in our program, it's, your wages or your benefits are based on your 3 years of service, last 3 years of service, or 3 highest years.
Three highest years, I believe.
But in any event, so it's based on that. But then other institutions or other entities had carved out and just made it identified wages as regular time wages, where we were still allowing, as entities used to do, allow overtime to be compensated or to be calculated into that. And I believe the direction the commission gave back then was to correct some of those things. I'm not sure we ever, in my mind, do you know if we've done that?
I'd have to check. I don't believe overtime.
Because my understanding was, and I was kind of confirmed in talking to some staff at the time, that certain people, if you're getting close to retirement, you would take all the overtime you could get because you would vastly inflate your last 3 years, and kind of the rest of the team sat back and said, yeah, let Susie or Johnny or whatever take the overtime because they need it for their retirement. And so it was distorting the benefits that we're giving that were kind of inappropriate, and other entities had stopped that practice, and we were still allowing it at that time. So, and there was a number of other things identified, but that one sticks in my mind. So I'd like some confirmation that we did indeed correct that.
I will.
And are in line with our peer group on those things. So.
I definitely will check on that because we did, oh gosh, it would have been November of 21. We did approve, that signed the paperwork and sent back. That's what we had done in the past was we can carry over 120 hours of vacation time each year. So before you retire, someone would wait till their anniversary date and fully reload their vacation time. And then we would pay them out for that entire amount. So.
And then if that's calculated in your pension, that's a heck of a deal.
And that got counted. What we did do and sign that back in November 21 was that that was not, we would only pay out to 120, and then anything over that would go into a healthcare savings program, and that would not be counted towards your last, annualized compensation, final average compensation number. So we did take care of that. That I know got done because I signed that. But I will check on that, Greg. I don't know.
Yeah,
that's a big.
It's something we need to address and just make sure we did it.
Nope, that is a big deal.
Okay, sorry for your interruption. Go ahead.
No, I appreciate that. Auditor procurement. Obviously, we've been working hard, especially the finance department, on getting ourselves back into shape with our audits. The discussion that we had back in 2020 wasn't until we got ourselves on some solid footing that we would kind of do our audit agreements on a yearly basis, and that's what we've been doing with so we haven't been out for bid an RFP or anything with any requesting bids for auditing services prior to that. So we just wanted to get that in front of you and to start thinking about that a little bit. Option one, and is to continue to go year to year with our existing auditing firm, which for this next year, I would recommend that we do that until we have a completely clean audit. And we had 2 corrections that we had for this last one, and those will be taken care of for this next one. So we'll have a clean audit. So if we do decide to go out and request request for proposals, that when they look at us, that we are not an organization that's going to need a lot of extra work. So hopefully we would see the best possible quote come back. We could also, if we're comfortable with using Yonyo, we could put together a multiple year, say 3-year extension agreement with them. Or then obviously, like we mentioned, we could go out for RFPs and see what the market is doing out there and see what else is available for auditing services. So we hadn't done that in a while. We hadn't really talked about that in a while, so we thought we'd just mention that. It's good. We're heading in the right direction. Sometimes when you think about, are we getting a good return on our investment? And I think we are. Obviously, we spent a lot less money in this last year for auditing service than we had previous because everything's being submitted properly, everything's been given to the auditor on time, and how they need it, how they want it and how they need it is being submitted properly. So that's been helping on our costs for auditing services also. So are we okay with just going another year with Yo, or?
I believe we are, yes.
I think so. Let's go with it for now.
Yeah, I think one more year makes a ton of sense, and then after that, I would say,
Then let's look
I
at it.
mean, nothing against Yo, Alley's been great, but I think just test the water, see, I mean,
It's always good to
it
get-
makes sense to get a bid. Just make sure we're getting what we should.
Yep.
So,
Okay, perfect. And then we did, as part of this, the newsletter provided the survey results from the Park and Rec Master Plan community survey. We look to have, as a committee, have a draft that will be ready for public hearings in this fall and submitted to the state of Michigan. And then lastly, the Alamo Live event. This is our 3rd annual. This will be happening on August 19th. I heard that people think it's going to be in September, which it was for the first 2 seasons. It will be on Saturday, August 19th from 3 to 10 p.m. in downtown Alma. Currently, we do have booked the Michigan Cornhole Tournament. We have 3 bounce houses for the kids. We have an obstacle course for the kids. We have axe throwing coming in for the adults, and dueling pianos to cap it off, and some other things that are being planned as well. So.
Those two things are mentioned together, axe throwing and dueling pianos, isn't
Okay.
it?
They're not the same, but
Okay, all right, just checking.
And
it's not related to that.
no. So it should be a great afternoon and evening. So, and that's it for me.
Okay. Any more questions for Eric? All right, hearing none. All those in favor of accepting report or receiving the report, please say yes.
Yes.
Any opposed, say no. Motion's carried. We received that report. Moving on to new business. We are to consider a resolution to approve a request from the Gratiot County Players Summer Youth Workshop to temporarily locate a 10-foot by 20-foot tent on the east side of the Strand Theater, which is between the Strand and the old City Hall building, from August 4th through August 13th, 2023, for their use during play performances, when they're going to have 10.5 million kids, I think it is, somewhere near that theater, so.
Move approval.
Support.
Okay, a motion support. Any comments, questions?
I just wanted to bring this before the board and get your approval, because I really didn't have anything I could point to in my zoning ordinance or anything. So just so I could cover myself and someone else would ask for something, that this board did bless it for this public event. So,
As long as they're not stocking up with fireworks. I think
yeah.
There'll be no fireworks.
Yep.
So it's not staying up for, it just is staying up, the framework is just staying up for the duration of the 4th through the 13th?
That's right.
Then it's coming, the whole thing's coming down? Okay.
Yep.
We don't have enough backstage room with the multiple
No, I'm
costumes and
well
stuff.
aware.
Okay. Any more questions? With that, did we have a motion on that? We did, okay, sorry. All those in favor say yes.
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 Any opposed, no. The motion is carried, and go forth for the Strand. Appropriations. Is there interest in paying the bills this evening?
Move to pay the appropriations.
Support.
Got a motion support. Are there any questions on those said bills? Hearing nothing. All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Any opposed, no. Motion is carried. Pay the bills. Commissioner comments. Michelle, would you like to go first?
Sure, I'd like to thank the public for coming out to Rural Urban Day. We served over 700 steak dinners, and Anderson girls brought their petting zoo, and it wasn't 100 degrees, so it was a nice event.
Perfect weather, yes. Andrew.
Well, I'm sure Roger will bring it up as well, but I'm encouraging everyone to check out Lion King downtown the next couple weekends, after this weekend.
Opens the 4th.
Yep, and the tickets are on sale right now.
Can't go wrong.
Yeah.
Okay. Roxanne. Danny.
Nothing this evening, thank you.
Roger.
There will be 2 Saturday matinees as well on this at 3 o'clock, I think, in addition to the regular Sunday afternoon performances. But in order to accommodate, there are 44, 45 kids that are in this. The junior designation means that nobody who is really into play is over the age of 18. So these are kids that go from 6 up to 18. It is a marvelous bunch of kids. The costumes are out of this world. We've done some kind of different things with lighting and stuff this year that we have not done before. The kids are working. Georgia Guyette, who is the former choir teacher at the high school, has been doing all the kids' musical work and stuff, and they are really, really good. I have seen Lion King Jr. twice before, and it kind of fell apart because the music was pretty mediocre. I mean, the play is Disney, it's Lion King, you know, there's no downside there, but this will not fall apart because of the music. So get your tickets early, like soon, because I will almost guarantee 8 sellouts on this, so please do. And you'll have a great time, no question about it, so.
That's a great story, so, thank you. Sarah?
Nothing for me. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Just like to remind everybody, large item pickups. Please call Granger if you have a large item, say a mattress box spring. Call Granger, set up a time to pick it up. They will tell you where to place it out at the curb and when to place it out at the curb. Please don't take it to the curb and leave it there for a week. It's a great service that Granger provides, and just they'll tell you how to place it and put it out there. It's just the way it's supposed to be done. And I'd like to continue our next contract with whatever wastewater we have, that we continue to have a large item. Now, not every community has large item pickups, so let's please use it properly. Not just to use it in the future, but everyone has to look at those large items at the curb. That's it.
Thank you. So yeah, congratulations to Strand, and you know, you talk about the kids who are down there, Roger. I think of the adults. So hats off to them for tackling this. It's quite an undertaking, that many kids. So with that, we'll open up the floor to the public. If any members of the public would like to address the commission, please go to the podium, state your name and address, and you have up to 5 minutes to share your thoughts with the commission. Who would like to go first?
I'll go.
Step ahead.
That's Roseanne. I reside at 889 Mill Street here in the city of Alma. I've got 2 safety concerns I'd like to bring up first. May 10th, I was bicycling over on the east side of town, and I found that there had been a fire in a home on Eastward Street. And at the time, there were tents set up, there were 2 dogs, but the house is burnt out. I mean, that's the only way to describe it. I haven't seen inside of it. That was May 10th that I found that. I think the fire was May 5th. That, as of today, is still wide open. The tents are gone, the dogs are gone. There has not been any securing of that building whatsoever. The language in the code is pretty clear that that should have been inspected as an unsafe building. And the building official, whoever does that, I'm not really sure if it's the county or the city that does that. I've seen things with county information on inspections in dangerous buildings, so I'm not sure. But it's wide open, everything. All the windows are gone, the doors are gone, and everything that was in the home is now around the home, outside. And it's really, in addition to being unsafe, it's ugly. And I don't know what the process is. I talked to Eric twice, and I think that should have been inspected and secured so nobody could get in it unless it was for insurance purposes and they could put a padlock on a plywood door and they could get in. The other thing is the I think it's a Sugar Beet building off of Woodworth. I don't even know what street it is. Down Street?
Down here?
Yeah, that big thing by the river. A corner of that is missing. And I went out there, I took some pictures of it, and you could put 2 of me side by side to get through the opening. I did peek inside, there's nothing in it, but on the outside of the building, the bricks, and I've got the pictures, I'm gonna give them to you before I leave here, are just haphazardly stacked up there in the building. So anything could cause those bricks to fall, and there are bricks on the ground where they have fallen. And I think that needs to be addressed as well, because if that was me when I was 12, I would have been in there. And I think there's 12-year-olds here that don't necessarily go in to explore, they go in to do other things. So I think that should be fixed so that it is at least secured so they can't get inside of it. The other thing is, those are the two safety issues. The work that's put on in downtown is fantastic. You've got murals. I mean, a lot of things are happening downtown, and it's really great that you're doing that. The trouble is, nobody parachutes into downtown. They come in on the roads or the sidewalks or whatever, and I bicycle. I bicycle a lot, and I think I see more because of that than I would be in a car. And if you come in on Superior from the east, headed toward downtown, you go through an industrial area, there's some abandoned buildings. There are buildings that have, they're not supposed to have gardens on the roof, I don't think, but you have trees growing on the roof of the buildings. There's a junkyard that has been brought up numerous times from this dais, and it's still there. And I don't know that anything's been done with that. It's just not a really good look to have that when you're coming into town. Same thing on Michigan Avenue. You come in from St. Louis, and there's several empty buildings that are just left to decay, and it doesn't give a good image. Also, we have homes that are not habitable, that are standing in neighborhoods. I know of 3 of them right offhand. One's on Moyer Street, one's on Court Street, and there's another one someplace. And where the roof is actually caving in, and I don't understand that. And I go back to what a statement a friend of mine made on one of these bike trips that I did. It's a week-long trip. She didn't know I lived in Alma. It was a palm ride. They go from one side of the state to the other, and we actually came through Alma. And it's when the finery was still operating, and all that associate stuff out there. She went through there. I think we came down Bagoa Road, and I met her out of town. She was sitting under a shade tree, so I stopped to talk with her, and she says, "Was that Alma back there?" And I says, "Yeah." She didn't know I lived in Alma. She says, "You know, that's a pitiful little town." And that kind of stuck with me, and I don't want anybody to come into town and think, boy, they work on the downtown and do great things, but look at around here. And there's a lot of other things that I think should be addressed by the code people. And there's the property owners should be held accountable. I'm sure if my place looked like some of these, you guys would be knocking on that door. So I've got the pictures here. I'm going to give them to you, Greg. And you can distribute them to whoever.
You should do that, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, appreciate it, Les. Who else would like to address the commission? Who would like to be next? Dawn?
Yeah. Thank you.
My name is Dawn Daniels. I live at 313 North State Street in Alma, and I'm the owner and manager of Ballyhoo Books and Brew in downtown Alma. I'm sorry I didn't change out of my work garb because I have to go right back, in a way that I hope that indicates how important what I'm about to say is to me, that because I very rarely get away from that place. As much as I love it, it's a fledgling small business, so I'm there a lot. But I don't want to spend a lot of time talking about my dismay about what happened on July 10th in Lot 3 in the parking lot behind our area between the hotel, the new boutique hotel, and our building where Ballyhoo Books is, and what happened with all of the trees that were taken out. I've gotten a lot of different pieces of information about what happened. Obviously, it wasn't, I don't think it was planned that way, for all of the trees to be taken out and chipped into sawdust instead of maybe removed, relocated. Nor was that communicated to folks clearly in the meeting that happened beforehand. A couple days before, there were a couple of informational meetings scheduled, just so folks, and I didn't get to go, but my neighbors did and shared with me. And so there was just some confusion about what was supposed to happen. But I'm more interested in talking about process, because this whole thing has brought up that question for me, and that's what I wanted to bring to your attention, or at least to maybe get some clarification for myself about what processes are in place already for dealing with trees in our community. This is connected also to because I did attend one of the community meetings that was held, and I can't remember what month it was. I think it was earlier in the spring when the tree experts were brought here from Michigan State, the Extension Service, to talk to the community about the downtown project, the desire to, or the concern about dealing with the mature trees that are downtown, the canopy of trees. And I never heard any resolve to all of that. I only was able to attend the one meeting, and I don't know what the process was for alerting the community about what the resolve was. But I've since learned, pretty close to the time that the thing happened in parking lot 3, with all those trees going, that all of the trees are going to be removed at once. And a replanting will happen between Pine and Prospect. Is that correct? That is the plan. From what I understand, too, that's counter to what the tree experts advised the community. Is that correct? It's different from what they recommended. They recommended, from what I understand, they recommended that there were 8 trees that are diseased currently downtown that need to come out, and that the rest are healthy, and that we should take them out as they become sick. But while they're alive and healthy, that they should stay in place. But we're going to do something different, take them all at once. And I think I'm bringing that up because the experience of seeing parking lot 3 decimated of all those maple trees, I think there were more than a dozen in that parking lot. They weren't I don't know what variety they were, because they weren't the huge maple trees. They were kind of a mid-sized maple tree. But they were healthy. And I understand that some of the trees may have been interfering with some drainage or something, that some of them are going to have to come out for fixing that parking lot. What I'm left with, though, is questioning in 21st century why we're not in a place where we take a longer pause before we think of trees as totally expendable things, especially when they're that old and providing so much to the community. And so I guess my question to you is, and something else I discovered, because I've been trying to do a little bit of research, and unfortunately I went down a rabbit hole on the City of Alma website, trying to understand ordinances. I was just trying to find stuff in there about trees, and what our ordinances are, what are our guidelines around that. And I also was looking for something that connects to the arbitration. I didn't know this until this happened either, that the City of Alma was designated 38 years ago as a city of trees by the Arbor Day Foundation. I didn't know that. And then I looked at their website and saw that there are certain things, guidelines that they have in order to earn that recognition from them. There are certain things we have to do, and the first thing on their list was my question. One of the things you have to do to earn that Tree City recognition is to maintain a tree board or department. And I wondered if we had that. Do we have that?
I'm just gonna, this is a public comment, so we can't answer.
Oh, okay, then I'm sorry. I'll put that out there. So, okay, you're right, I'm sorry. I forgot that. So I won't ask it that way. So the 4 things I found on the website were maintaining a tree board or department, having a community tree ordinance. I did find, I'm really proud of myself, because I found exactly it's chapter 58 in the ordinances under vegetation. There's 2 articles, a general article, and an article 2 through me, because it says that there's a city forester. And I couldn't find who that is. I'm guessing it's probably folded in under another job. So I have questions, and I know you can't answer them right now, but I guess I want you to consider them too. The other 2 things that they listed on the 4 things you have to do to be recognized as a tree city is spending at least $2 per capita on urban forestry. I don't know what that amounts to. And the 4th one is celebrating Arbor Day. I did find in the April can't remember which April meeting, April 11th meeting, city commission meeting, and I did look back, and it's something that's happening annually, that the city commission is acknowledging this whole thing, acknowledging, making a motion about Arbor Day and all of that stuff, but that's as far as it goes from what I can tell. There's no, I mean, so we're, from what I can see so far, it seems that we're minimally, very minimally, doing the things that the Arbor Day Foundation recommends. And I guess I wanted just to point that out in that I'm concerned that there's not enough process before we decimate a bunch of living trees from a place when there might have been another option. Let's say they all were a problem for that parking lot. They could have been moved, possibly. And I don't know what's going on downtown, but after seeing, I mean, if all those trees come out at one time, I was alarmed to hear that. Because after experiencing what that parking lot looks like out my back door, I'm afraid for what might be coming our way from residents who really are clueless about what's about to happen downtown, and the dismay and outrage that might be unleashed to see our downtown decimated of trees. I guess my plea would be I'd like to know more about process. I'd like to have a deeper process about these things before we do them, but also to maybe reconsider the plan for removing all of those trees at one time, and to follow Michigan State's recommendation.
Okay,
That's all I have. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Anybody else care to address the commission? No? Okay, I don't see anybody else coming forward, so with that, we'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So
We have motions, somebody support? Support, yeah, support there, okay. All those in favor say yes?
Yes.
Any opposed, no? Motion's carried, we are adjourned. Thank you very much. Thank you everybody for your comments, and